I'm Alexis, a consultant here at Valiantys. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can add up values from assets in Jira Service Management. Assets in Jira Service Management is helpful for teams looking to track and manage IT and business resources. A common way assets is used is to store requestable and assigned hardware to employees. With requestable hardware, you can build a catalog for employees to be able to request hardware from a given list. While this can be taken a step further with automation for Jira to create an asset and assign it to an employee that selected it, there is one step before that has to occur. This hardware must be approved. Most companies go by a set dollar amount that if you go over, it requires manager approval, and anything less than that limit gets automatically approved and can be ordered. In this video, I'm going to show you just that step. We're going to sum up the totals of the items selected to determine if the request needs to go for approval. In order to do that, we need to do the following. We need the asset schema for the devices. You can add as much information into these objects to display to your customers and to the agent in the issue view. So in this video, when I refer to an object, I'm referring to the device. So that's going to be either phones or a tablet. We need to then add up the total of these items selected for each device that we will need to have a field to be used to store that dollar amount. That's going to be what's known as an attribute. You can then set this field to either be an integer or a text. Depending on what you select, it changes the automation slightly. After that, we're going to need our custom fields. We're going to need to link each device category to a field in order to allow users to select what they want. In this example, I will need to create one for phones and tablets. We're also going to need to store that sum price of all the assets. That's going to be our total price field. This is where we're going to perform the sum operation and store the total. Then we're going to need our automations. We're going to create an automation that's going to grab all the assets that are selected, find their price, and add them all together. I mentioned above that if you select an integer or text, that the automation will be slightly different. I will demonstrate both. This automation will send the request to approval if the sum of the devices is selected greater than the limit. In this case, I'm going to use the limit of $2,000. And to connect this all together, we're going to need the request form. After the custom fields for the device categories have been created, we will need to add them on the request form. Due to the issue possibly requiring approval, make sure the request type that you're using is on an approval workflow. If you are unsure of how to configure that, check out the link in the description below where I walk through the configuration steps for an approval workflow. Now that we have everything lined out for what we need, let's dive in, starting with the asset schema. First, we're going to need to navigate to the asset schema. On the top navigation bar, select Assets. In Assets, we're going to need to select the schema that's going to store all these devices. In this case, we're going to use Tech. And in the schema tree, we have phones and tablets. So here in phones, I have the selection of Google Pixel, some iPhones, and even some Samsung Galaxies. You'll see here when I mention descriptions of information you want to put, you can put things such as storage size, the brand, but what we mainly need is price. So here I have price, which this is a text, and then this field I have pricey, which is a integer. And to double check that, if we click on attributes, we can see here it says price is text, and then pricey is integer. For you, in order to add these, simply type in the name. You can leave this as default, and then if you're going to make it a text, select text. If not, click this drop down and click integer, and then click add. Then you will have your attribute that we will need to use. Note that if you are deciding to go with a text field and you're going to go with that for price, make sure that you're consistent with this dollar amount being put in front of it. This is very crucial in the automation to determine if this is a text field or an integer field to then appropriately add up the numbers. Now that we have our objects created, let's move on to custom fields. To do that, we're going to need to go to Issues. Click on the gear cog and then click on Issues under Jira Settings. Now to create our custom field, we're going to go over to Custom Fields below Fields. And then we're going to create custom field. First, we're going to create our two custom fields. We're going to do for phone selection and tablet selection. To do that, we're going to use the field type of asset object. To find that, click on All, and it's going to be that first one you see here. So click on Asset Object and hit Next. Now you're going to go ahead and name your field. So in my case, mine is called Phone Selection. Description's optional, you can add it. Once you have that, click Create, and you're going to get the list that's going to ask you what you want to put this field on. This is going to be what's called our screens. Screens are what's going to allow this field to be visible on the agent side view. This would not be what affects seeing it on the portal side. So once you select your field, the screens that you want, the screens you're going to want, it's going to be the screens that are for that request type's issue type. Once you do that, hit save, and you'll be brought back to this screen. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to search up the field that we made. Click on context, and then click create, edit, or delete context. Now we need to actually put in our information. We're going to click on edit asset objects. And here is where we're going to put in our information. So first we need to tell this asset object custom field what object schema we want to point to. Notice how I pointed out that my assets are in the schema called text, so I have text selected. Now we have our filter scope. This filter scope is how we're going to tell it what we want to appear in this field when selected. In this case, we want all the phones, so we're going to type object type equals phones. The category is phone, so that is why we have our object type. Now we're going to skip over filter issue scope. We don't need that. We're going to go down to user interaction. Here is where we can select what fields we want to display on the agent view and the portal view. Note that when it comes to displaying on the portal view, you can only display these attributes if they are put in the request form, not if they are embedded in a request type form. That currently does not support the capabilities to display those, and what it's going to display is just the tagline for that object. And when I say tagline, I am referring to this little tag here. It's going to only display that for the user. We're going to toggle this field that says fields can store multiple objects. This will allow a user to select more than one device. For this demonstration, I'm allowing a user to select more than one phone and more than one tablet. Note that in a professional setting, you will want to be particular with what users can select for more than one quantity of, which a phone and tablet categories that are typically not one that you allow a user to select more than one of. Usually that's going to be accessory, so in that accessory object type you have camera, keyboard, mouse. Those are ones that are commonly going to be a multi-select to allow users to select more than one of. Once we have all of our information in there, we're going to hit save. And now we can see it said operation successful. So now we're going to have to go ahead and do the same to the other field. I already have it created, so I'm just going to go search it to show. Click on context. And we can see here, I have this one set up the same. This one's looking at tablets since that is the object type for all the tablets. I'm displaying the same information, and I'm allowing the field to store more than one. We also need to create that custom field to store the total price of these assets. So we're going to click create custom field, and then we can do a number field. A number field, all we're using this for is just to store this final price. So you're going to hit number field, click next, you're going to name it, add a description, again that's optional, and then associate it to the screens for that request type's issue type. Note that because this field's more so of just holding this data, you don't have to put this on the request form, as it's not something that you need to be visible because we're just using it in the automation to kick stuff off. I recommend when it comes to testing to include it, that way you can make sure how everything's running, you can see that what data it's spitting out. I recommend to put it there just for now, but you can always remove it later. So I'm going to search up mine, and I'm going to show you that I have mine created. Alright, so now, second to last step is that we need to put those selection fields on the request form. To do that, we're going to go to Project Settings, back in our project. We're going to click Request Management, and my request types are under Service Requests, so I'm going to click that. And I'm going to use this one that's Asset Testing for Price Sums. And then here, what we're going to have is, I already have it over here, but if it wasn't here, on your drop-down field here, you're going to look for your field. In this case, you can also just search it. phone selection. I can drag that. There we go. And then make sure you hit save. Now we're on to the last step. Let's make those automations. We'll go ahead and click on automation. Notice how I said earlier that depending on the type of field you used for that price, whether it's going to be a text or a integer, it's going to slightly change how those automations work. I'm going to go over both those automations. Both the concepts are the same. It's just how the calculations are used to split up those sums is just slightly different. So to start, you'll click on create rule. I already have mine created, so I'm just going to walk through those. We're going to start with the integer. So I have my trigger set on manual. This is what I always use when I'm testing out rules. Eventually in the end, we want this to automatically be done when the issue is created. So once everything's said and done, we're just going to change this trigger from manual to issue created. For now, I'm going to put back that manual trigger. So now, we're going to need to create some variables. So first, we need to know what phone is selected, and with that phone selected, we need to know its price. So, we're going to create a variable called phone selection. This right here is saying that it's going to look for the selection of this field from the issue, and then .pricey is the name of the attribute that is storing this price as an integer. These steps are optional. I use it a lot for troubleshooting, especially when you're working with smart values. It's nice to always have those spit out the value that you're looking for directly within the audit log. So here I am telling it to take the selection list, split it by a comma deliberative value, and then sum up those values. And then we're going to have to do the same thing for tablet selection. We're going to tell it to find the selection for the tablet, find its attribute for price, and then we're going to spit it out in the audit log by a comma delimited format, and we're going to sum it up. Now we're going to do the total. So the total for tablet, we're going to take the selection, we're going to split it by the comma delimited, which we did in this audit log, and we're going to add this pipe 0. What this pipe 0 does is that if there's no value within that field, it's going to put it as 0. That way we're not going to receive an error when we're trying to do this addition. It's just going to count it as 0. And then we're going to do the same thing for phone total. We're going to split it in a comma delimited format. We're going to sum it. And if there's no value in there, we're going to treat it as 0. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that total asset price field that we made, and we are going to make it perform the formula within this field. The field, when you go to edit it, it can support its calculation. So what you see here, we're adding those smart values together. What this is going to do, it's going to put that data in this field. So it's going to calculate, and it's going to throw it there. Since it's a number field, it's only going to display that number. Once we have that price, we're going to have it refetch this data. A refetch just allows it to perform the operations in the issue, and then it's going to regather the information back in that issue. This is very well used when it comes to fields that you edit, and sometimes automation with how quick it runs, it doesn't quite catch if you modified a field beforehand to run off of. So a refetch just helps you gather the information from changes that were already made above. Then I just said to display the total price. And now we come to our if statement. So if this total price is greater than $2,000, then to the audit log, I'm telling it to say this is greater than 2,000. And since it's greater, we're going to add an approver. In this case, I am making myself the approver. And if else, so this is going to be if the price is not equal to 2,000, then it's going to say total price of the item selected is not greater than 2,000. And since we said that we were going to have it automatically approve, if it's not greater, we're going to add our component, and we're going to make it approve. In our approval decision, we're going to select approve, hit next, and update. There we go. So that is for the integer type. So if we're going to go over to, back to our rules, to our text type, like I said before, this context works the exact same way. The only difference is that because that text type contains that $sign, we need to remove that $sign in order for it to calculate just the number. So in the audit log, which is what's going to be broken down below, I'm telling it to display those prices, finding the dollar sign that's in front of the amount, and then in these quotes, there's nothing there. What that nothing is doing, it's replacing a dollar sign with nothing. So instead of having a dollar sign 100, it's just 100. And then we're going to split that in that comma delimited format. And just in case, because it is a text, we're going to have dot as number to display, and it's going to sum up that. So we did that for phone selection. We created our variable to get the price for both phone and tablet. Now that we know what our values are in an integer, now we're going to create those totals. So now we're putting in what we put in that audit log to that total. And again, we're doing that pipe 0. That way, if there's no value in that field, it treats it as 0 and it won't error out. Now, we'll go to our total asset price, which is the field that we want to physically add that sum in. And since these are text fields and not integers, we're also going to do a dot as number. That way, it's going to treat these values as a number. Then, it's going to work the same as it did before. We're going to refetch the issue data since we're changing that field. We're going to display that total price in the audit log, and now if the total price is greater than or equal to 2,000, we're going to tell the audit log to comment that it is over 2,000 for that field, and then we're going to set myself as the approver in order to approve the issue. If it's less, then we're just going to comment that the items selected are less than 2,000, and we are going to make it approve since it will not require approval. Make sure when you create these rules that you hit save or update. And now that all of this is configured, let's go see how it looks. So, to go back to the portal, we can either go to channels and self-service, or we can just hit back to project. Click on channel, and then we're going to hit open on portal. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to submit a request. So let's submit one that will be over $2,000. So let's say over 2,000. Phone selection, we are going to select that and select that. Notice in these ones I forgot to include the name, so this is just displaying the category and the price. So make sure that when you're doing this, you are selecting the full name to also display. Tablet selection, we're going to do the same. So here, this already totals up 2,000, but we're just going to slap it on just to make sure. And let's send. So now I have my issue, and we can see here after submit, it tells me I selected an iPhone 16 Pro Max and an iPhone 15 Pro, and my tablet was a Fire tablet. We can see here that I am in approval, and if I click on the breadcrumbs here, it'll take me to the issue view. And we can see here the selections that I have made. Did not set me as the approver. Oh, that is right. That is one common thing you have to remember, is that because we set these triggers as manual, we have to make sure in order to test them out, we have to click on Actions, and then we're going to click on the text type first. So now this automation is running, it's in progress, and we can see here that it added myself as approver. However, I cannot approve it because of this workflow says that the reporter cannot approve it. But if I change this to another user, we can see here that now I'm able to approve it. So let's remove myself as approver, and let's try it with the integer type. Again, this should work the same way. It should see that this is over 2,000, and it should, there we go, and it's asking me for approval. So then I can approve it, and now this issue is ready to be worked. So let's go see what it looks like when it's under 2,000. So we're going to go back to the project, and we're going to go back and submit another one, and we're going to say this is under 2,000. And we're just going to select a Google Pixel. And we'll just say a Google Pixel. We'll go ahead and click send. And now we can see here I selected a Google Pixel. We'll go to the agent view of this issue. And now we'll go ahead and we'll test it with the integer type. It's looking, it's seeing that it's under $2,000, and it automatically went through, automatically approving the issue. And that's it. We successfully configured assets in Jira Service Management to track device requests, sum up their costs, and trigger approvals when necessary. By leveraging automation for Jira, we've streamlined the approval process, ensuring requests over the set threshold get reviewed while others are automatically approved. I hope this walkthrough helps you implement similar automations in your own workflows. Watching.